is Elena Mercer. I'm 35 years old. And I didn't realize my relationship was already cracking until the moment my boyfriend leaned toward his mother at the dinner table and whispered something he thought I couldn't understand. She still doesn't know what we planned. Just smile. They both chuckled softly. I kept cutting my food, kept chewing, kept smiling, because reacting in that moment would have changed everything, and I wasn't ready for that yet. Evan and I had been together for almost 6 years. Not married, but long enough that people stopped asking when and started assuming already. We shared a house, shared routines, shared a quiet life that looked stable from the outside. His family immigrated 2 generations ago and still spoke their native language at home. Evan had told me early on, almost casually, that I didn't need to worry about it. "They'll switch to English for you," he'd said. "They know you don't understand." That assumption, that I didn't understand, was their first mistake. My grandmother on my mother's side was from the same country. I spent summers with her growing up. The language wasn't something I studied, it lived in me. I understood tone before grammar, meaning before structure. When I met Evan's family for the first time and they spoke freely in front of me, I made a decision. I wouldn't tell them. Not out of manipulation, out of curiosity. I wanted to know who they were when they thought I was invisible. Evan's mother never liked me. She never said it directly. She didn't need to. She smiled while commenting on my job being comfortable, not ambitious. She praised other women, real career women, while glancing at me just long enough to make sure I noticed. She spoke in their language at dinners, voice sweet, words sharp. She could do better. She doesn't push herself. She's fine. Evan rarely corrected her. Sometimes he'd say, "Mom, stop," but without heat, without consequence. And then he'd change the subject. I told myself it didn't matter. He loved me. That was enough. I was wrong. 3 months ago, things started to shift. Evan became distant, always on his phone, spending more time at his parents' house. When I asked, he blamed work, stress, fatigue. I believed him. Then came last Sunday. Their weekly family dinner, same table, same dishes, same language flowing around me like I wasn't there. We were halfway through the main course when Evan leaned toward his mother and whispered. That's when I heard it. He still doesn't know what we planned. Just smile. His mother chuckled. Another voice joined in. His father mentioned paperwork. His brother joked about things being locked in. My stomach dropped. I didn't ask questions. I listened. And I understood one thing with terrifying clarity. They were planning something. And I wasn't supposed to know. I smiled back at Evan when he asked in English, "Everything okay?" "Just enjoying dinner," I said. Inside, I was already counting exits. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because Evan did anything loud. He didn't. He brushed his teeth, kissed my forehead, and rolled over like a man with nothing to hide. But the sentence kept looping in my head like a warning siren. She still doesn't know what we planned. Just smile. People don't say planned unless something is already in motion. And people don't tell you to smile unless they're trying to keep you calm long enough to get what they want. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of Evan's breathing, and realizing something that made my throat tighten. Whatever this was, it wasn't an argument waiting to happen. It was a strategy. When Evan finally fell into a deeper sleep, I slid out of bed and walked barefoot down the hall to the home office. We kept our important paperwork there, titles, insurance policies, tax records. Evan always joked that I was the organized one. He wasn't wrong. I turned on the desk lamp. The light felt too bright for what I was about to find, like the room itself was trying to warn me. I started with the obvious, bank statements. I logged into our joint savings account, the one we'd been building for years. The one we'd talked about using for vacations, renovations, maybe even a wedding someday if we ever stopped being too busy. There was supposed to be a little over $80,000 in it. My eyes flicked to the balance. I blinked. Refreshed the page. The number didn't change. It was lower, way lower. My fingers went cold as I scrolled through the transaction history. Transfers, not payments, not bills. Transfers. 5,000, 10,000, 7,500. All sent to an account I didn't recognize. And it wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. Slow, careful, designed not to trigger panic. Designed to drain the tank without setting off the alarm. I checked our investment account. Same story. Small reallocations, quiet withdrawals, redirections labeled with vague notes that looked like normal portfolio adjustments if you didn't look too closely. Evan knew I trusted him, that I didn't hover, that I didn't micromanage. He used that. Then I opened the filing cabinet. I pulled out the folder with the house documents. The house was mine originally. I bought it before Evan and I moved in together. But once he moved in, once we built routines inside it, it stopped feeling like mine and started feeling like ours. That's what love does. It rewrites ownership without paperwork. But the paperwork still mattered. I flipped through the usual pages: deed, insurance, property tax records, until I found a new stack that didn't belong. Property transfer forms. Half completed. My name typed neatly in the grantor line. My signature line blank. My hands started shaking so badly I had to grip the edge of the desk to steady myself. It wasn't just money. It was my home. They weren't planning an argument. They were planning a theft with a smile on top. I photographed everything, every page, every account transfer, every form. Then I put it all back exactly the way it was, down to the angle of the folder in the drawer. Because the second Evan knew I was aware, he'd change the plan. And I needed him to believe I was still the woman who smiled. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I texted my boss something vague. Migraine, bad night, won't be in. Then I drove to a lawyer's office on the other side of town. I'd found her at 2 a.m. while Evan slept beside me. Her review said she was blunt, strategic, and didn't play games. I needed all three. Her name was Marianne Klein, mid-50s, sharp eyes, hair pinned back like she didn't waste time on softness unless it served a purpose. She looked over the photographs quietly. No dramatic gasps, no sympathetic headshakes. Just careful attention. Then she set her reading glasses down and said, "This isn't a misunderstanding." My throat tightened. "What is it then?" "Financial deception," she replied, "at best. Fraud, at worst." I swallowed. Can he do this without me knowing? She tapped the bank transfer screenshots. If his name is on joint accounts, he can move money. That's unfortunately legal in many cases until we prove intent to deceive or conceal. Then she tapped the property transfer forms. But this requires your signature, which is why it's incomplete. So the plan is, I forced myself to say it out loud, to get you to sign, she finished calmly, likely under a false reason. Refinancing, paperwork cleanup, tax adjustment, something that sounds boring enough. You won't read it. My stomach twisted, because that's exactly what Evan would assume about me. That I wouldn't read, that I would trust, that I would smile and sign. I stared at the desk between us and whispered, "What do I do?" Marianne leaned forward slightly. "You document everything. You do not confront him yet. The element of surprise is protection." I looked up. "So I'm supposed to just live with him? Pretend?" "For now," she said. "Because if he knows you're aware, he'll hide more assets, change accounts, destroy evidence, and make your life harder. Right now, he thinks you're harmless. That's an advantage." Harmless. The word hit like a slap. Not because it was true, but because it was how they saw me. I nodded slowly, even as a different feeling started rising beneath the fear. Not anger yet. Something colder. Something clearer. When I got back home, Evan was in the kitchen making coffee like nothing in the world had changed. He smiled when he saw me. "Hey, you okay?" I watched him closely, the ease in his face, the casual innocence. How someone could look you in the eye while quietly rerouting your life. "I'm fine," I said. And I smiled. Because in that moment, I understood the truth. They weren't going to stop. Not on their own. Not out of guilt. Not out of love. If I wanted my life back, I would have to take it. After the lawyer's office, something in me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was quieter than that, like a door closing inside my chest. I still cooked dinner, still asked Evan about his day, still laughed at the same jokes we'd been repeating for years. But I stopped believing any of it. And once belief is gone, observation sharpens. I started noticing how often Evan went into the home office when I wasn't around. How he suddenly cared about where I kept documents he'd never asked about before. How his mother's visits increased, always while I was at work, always framed as something casual. "She just wanted to drop off food," he'd say. "She was already in the neighborhood." In their language, it sounded different, more deliberate, more coordinated. I knew better than to confront them with just suspicion. Marianne had been very clear about that. "If you're going to expose this," she'd said, "you need proof that doesn't rely on interpretation." So I gave myself exactly that. The camera was small, disguised as a desk lamp. It sat on the far edge of the home office, angled just enough to capture the filing cabinet and desk. I installed it on a Thursday morning before leaving for work. Evan didn't notice. That alone told me everything I needed to know. The first recording didn't catch much. Evan rifling through papers. A phone call I couldn't hear clearly. The second one did. His mother came over that afternoon. I watched the footage that night while Evan slept, the glow of my phone lighting up the bedroom like a secret. They stood shoulder to shoulder in the office, her hand resting casually on the filing cabinet as if it already belonged to her. The forms are ready, Evan said, holding up the property transfer documents. We just need her signature. His mother waved a dismissive hand. She won't read them. My chest tightened. She's not like you, Evan said with a short laugh. She trusts. Too much. They both smiled. Put them in a stack, his mother continued. Tell her it's refinancing, or tax paperwork, something boring. What if she asks questions? Evan asked. She scoffed. She won't. She never reads anything carefully. Then Evan said the sentence that burned itself into me. She really is that easy. I felt something crack open in my chest. Not heartbreak this time, but clarity so sharp it hurt. 6 years. 6 years of believing I was respected. And this was who he was when he thought I wasn't listening. I didn't cry. That surprised me. Instead, I paused the video, took screenshots, backed it up in 3 different places, and emailed a copy to Marianne. Her reply came less than an hour later. This shows intent. This is very strong evidence. I stared at the screen and felt a strange calm settle over me. They weren't just betraying me. They were underestimating me, and that would be their last mistake. When I met Marianne again, she watched the footage with her arms crossed, expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "You can confront them now." I nodded. "I want to." "But," she added, holding up a finger, "only after we protect you." So we spent the next 2 hours preparing. She drafted separation paperwork, not filed yet, just ready. She helped me open a new bank account in my name only. We transferred exactly half of what remained in our joint accounts. No more, no less. Clean, legal, documented. Never take more than your share, she warned. You want the moral high ground and the legal one. I appreciated that. Even now, she was thinking 3 steps ahead. When are you planning to confront him? She asked. I didn't hesitate. Sunday dinner. She raised an eyebrow. Public. They planned it publicly, I said. They just didn't think I could hear. Marianne smiled, not warmly but approvingly. Then make sure you record it. The days leading up to Sunday felt surreal. Evan was lighter than he'd been in months. Happier. Almost relieved. He kissed me more, complimented me, talked about future trips we'd definitely take soon. All while thinking he was days away from signing my house away from me. I played my role perfectly. I smiled. I listened. I signed nothing. And I let him believe exactly what he wanted to believe. That I was easy. That I was unaware. That I was safe to deceive. Sunday morning, I woke up with a calm that felt unnatural. No shaking hands, no racing thoughts. Just clarity. I got dressed carefully. Neutral clothes. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that looked like armor. Evan hummed while tying his shoes. You're in a good mood, he said. I am, I replied honestly. Because for the first time since this began, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And so did they. They just didn't know it yet. The house smelled the same as it always did. Roasted meat. Garlic. Something sweet simmering on the stove that Evan's mother liked to pretend took hours, even though I'd seen her use shortcuts a dozen times. Nothing about the setting suggested disaster. That was the point. Family dinners were where they felt safest, where smiles were currency and language was a weapon they believed only they possessed. Evan squeezed my hand as we walked in. Big night, he said lightly. I smiled back. It is. Everyone was already seated when we arrived. His parents, his brother and sister-in-law, the usual choreography of hugs, cheek kisses, polite compliments. His mother kissed my cheek and said in English, "You look well." Her eyes flicked over me, measuring, dismissive, familiar. "Thank you," I replied. Dinner began like every other week. Courses rolled out one by one. Laughter rose and fell. Conversations split and rejoined. And the language flowed freely around me. I listened, carefully. Halfway through the main course, Evan leaned toward his mother again. Same posture, same lowered voice, same confidence. She still doesn't know what we planned. Just smile. His mother chuckled softly. Next week, she whispered back. The papers are ready. They smiled at each other, then at me. Something settled in my chest. This was it. I placed my fork down slowly, folded my napkin, and stood up. The scrape of my chair against the floor cut through the room. Evan looked up, confused. Everything okay? I met his eyes. Then I turned to his mother, and I answered them in their language. Funny, because I already finished planning mine. The silence was immediate, total. Evan's face drained of color so fast it was almost fascinating. You speak, he stammered. I've always spoken it, I said calmly, still in their language. My grandmother taught me when I was a child. I've understood everything you've said for the past 6 years. His mother's mouth opened. Closed. No sound came out. I switched to English, not for them, but for everyone else at the table. So no one misses anything. I know about the money transfers, I said. I know about the joint accounts you've been draining. I know about the property transfer forms you plan to trick me into signing. Evan shot up from his chair. Elena, wait, let me explain. Explain what? I cut in. Explain how you and your mother planned to steal from me? Explain how you laughed about how easy I am? His brother blinked. What the hell are you talking about? Ask Evan, I said, not breaking eye contact. Ask him why he's been moving tens of thousands of dollars without telling me. Ask him why he thought I wouldn't read legal documents with my name on them. His mother burst into rapid speech in their language. Accusations, deflections, words like misunderstanding and overreacting flying across the table. No, I replied in her language, then back to English. There's no misunderstanding. I have copies of everything. Bank statements, transfer records, the unsigned property form. Evan's voice cracked. You recorded us? Yes, I said simply. In my own home, in a single-party consent state. My lawyer confirmed it's admissible. Lawyer? His mother's voice went sharp. You went to a lawyer? I nodded. Weeks ago. The room felt smaller, tighter. Evan looked like he might be sick. What do you want? His father finally asked. His voice was quiet, controlled. Nothing from you, I said. But Evan will be receiving separation papers tomorrow morning. I've already moved my share of our joint assets into a protected account. The house remains mine, purchased before our relationship, my name only. Evan's chair scraped back as he stood. We've been together 6 years. You can't just... I can, I said, and I am. He opened his mouth again. I didn't wait. I loved you, I continued. I would have given you anything you asked for. All you had to do was be honest, but you chose this. I picked up my coat. No one followed me. As I walked out, I felt it, not triumph. Control. The divorce papers were delivered to Evan's office the next morning. I didn't watch it happen. I didn't need to. By then, the confrontation had already done its work. The shock, the exposure, the collapse of the story he'd been telling himself. That I was quiet because I was unaware, compliant because I was weak. He called me 12 times before noon. I didn't answer. That evening, he came to the house. I'd changed the locks. I watched from the upstairs window as he stood on the porch, phone pressed to his ear, voice rising and falling in a pattern I recognized. Panic layered over disbelief. He knocked. Harder. Louder. Elena, he called. Please, we need to talk. I stayed where I was. After 20 minutes, he left. Marianne moved quickly. By the end of the week, Evan's lawyer had received a full package. Bank statements, transfer logs, screenshots, video footage, and timestamps that made it impossible to argue confusion or coincidence. His lawyer called Marianne 2 days later. They're going to claim this was financial reorganization, Marianne told me afterward, her tone dry. But they don't believe it themselves. Good, I said. They'll push for negotiation. No, I replied. The law is enough. She smiled faintly. That's what I told them. Evan tried another angle. His brother called me 3 days after the confrontation. I didn't know, he said immediately. I swear, if I had... I know, I replied. You looked shocked. So did your wife. There was a pause. Our mom, she's not handling this well. She planned it, I said gently. With him. Another pause, longer this time. Jesus, he muttered. Dad's furious. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. Just confirmation. Apparently, this wasn't the first time his mother had hidden financial decisions. Evan's betrayal had simply dragged everything into the light. Families don't implode from truth. They implode from lies finally exposed. The separation finalized faster than anyone expected. Evan kept his car, his personal belongings, and what little remained of the joint savings after I'd moved my legal share. I kept my house, my retirement accounts, and something else I hadn't realized I'd lost until it was back in my hands, my sense of reality. He tried once more to see me. Showed up at my office. Security called me down. He looked smaller somehow, less certain. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I was wrong. My mom convinced me. I held up a hand. Stop. He swallowed. We can fix this. Therapy. Time. We had 6 good years. No, I said calmly. We had 6 years where I thought I was safe. That's not fair. Neither is planning to steal from someone who trusts you. His voice broke. I love you. You loved what I gave you, I corrected. Stability. A home. Someone you thought wouldn't notice. He flinched. I didn't mean it, he whispered. When I said you were easy. Yes, I replied softly. You did. I turned and walked away. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. No shouting matches, no public drama. Just distance. Evan moved to another city. His mother lives alone now, angry, isolated, still convinced she was protecting her son. I don't think about her much. I think about myself, about how trust can turn into a blindfold if you're not careful, about how silence can be mistaken for weakness, about how knowing when to listen and when to speak can save you from losing everything. I've started dating again, slowly, carefully. I listen more than I talk now. And sometimes, when I hear that language spoken in public, my body still reacts before my mind catches up. Maybe that will fade. Maybe it won't. But I'm free, and I know the truth. That's enough.